Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me today is Mr. Mat Germain. As you may remember, this man digs deep when it comes to understanding what's all going on in baseball, whether it's through spring training, whether it's through the winter seasons, and anything. Matt has been watching with close eyes. So he and I are going to try to dissect some of this, and I'll lay most of it at his feet. But I'm really glad to have you here today, Matt. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Enjoying the fact that spring training is behind us and the season's underway, and we're getting some fun games to talk about now.
You know, dude, I stepped outside here in Tampa a few moments ago. It was 90 freaking degrees out. Yeah. It's insane. Awesome. It's insane, brother. But anyway, well, I'm glad you're here. Opening day just was miraculous to me. It always is. You just don't know what's going to evolve. One of the first things I looked at said, well, who won the World Series last year? Oh, yeah. That's those Astros, those guys. It was interesting, Matt, looking at their final spring training game against St. Louis, was a 24-1 win. They had a 24-1 win over St. Louis Cardinals, and that's one run less than they've scored in their first 5 games of the season thus far. All of those first 5 games have been played in Minute Maid Park in Houston. So yep. Of those, they've lost 3 of the 5, man, and one of them was to a team that's been ranked number 27, the Detroit Tigers. Do you think AJ Hinch is feeling pretty good today?
I do, definitely. He knows that, Jose Altuve now being there has a lot to do with their early season struggles, but I think he probably still takes a little bit of pride in that and isn't going to mention that to his team at all after the win.
No. I'm really curious to see how the rest of that's going to go. Now, who was it that right fielder they had out there? I think Matt Vierling. He had 5 at-bats, 4 hits. And let's see. Oh, my gosh. See, one of those hits came in the 11th inning with a 2-run home run to boot. My gosh. He was cooking.
Yep. He's one of those players that when he left, and finally started getting some decent playing time, you were kind of intrigued to see what the season was going to bring. There's some guys, Luke Raley's a lot the same with the Rays, right? Where they're the kind of players that you're hoping can get the playing time that the original team couldn't really give them. And then Matt Vierling has a decent potential to be an impact player for that team in the future.
I agree wholeheartedly. I tell you what, you were mentioning Luke Raley. I want to say we'll talk a little more about the Rays further on, but one thing I do want to mention about the Rays is they are one of 2 teams that has a 1,000% winning percentage. Let's see, them and the Twins thus far.
Yep, and I don't think that's going to end tonight, to be quite honest, but or tomorrow night. So if Rays play their cards right, they can have a pretty good cushion to kind of fall back on in the future. A lot of people say it doesn't matter, it's early on, yada. But I always look at it this way, right? If you have a 4-0 record to start, then you only need to go 50-50 for the rest of the year to be 4 games above 500. So, that's a pretty good safety net to have. Then you keep trying to build that cushion up, and things will happen. They'll have losing streaks and winning streaks, but you'll take them whenever you can get them, basically.
Amen to that, because like you said, well, it's early. It's early. Yes, but at game 162, I'd like to have that buffer built in, those 4 games like you're talking about. I love at that point, I'm looking over 158 games and said, oh, well, I've got those 4 wins. I'll take that chunk and I'll put them right here.
Exactly.
Well, looking across the league, though, I was talking about the Minnesota Twins, and I'm thinking, let's see, the games they played, I don't think they played at home yet. They've still won 4 of their 4 games here.
I really like the rotation in Minnesota. I don't think that got enough coverage. I know everybody knows Pablo Lopez went over, but I don't think they understood the impact that that's going to have on that pitching staff. And they already had a decent amount of experience. It's not just about him adding experience, but it's the pedigree that he gives them. They essentially have a team full of number 2s across the board when you look at it. And that's a strong, I don't see them as being on level with the Rays, or maybe a tick below. But overall, they're going to give their team a chance to win. So really, when you look at the brilliance of them also bring in Michael Taylor so that Byron Buxton can sit on the bench and DH and play less often on the field. All of that starts tying into them continuing to be a solid defensive team, but also now having the punch from Buxton's bat consistently in the lineup. So they were my pick for the AL Central. I didn't think anybody was going to get by them. Guardians will give them a hard time. I'm not as big a fan as the White Sox as a lot of people, mostly because their depth of pitching and suspect pitching in some cases. But they could always land somebody to change that.
Yeah.
But the Twins to me are the class of that division so far.
Yeah, the Tigers and Royals, I mean, those are a couple of teams. I hate to say it, but a lot of folks will just see them as trash teams and saying, well, okay, we're playing that. Well, we got that series. Click that off. And obviously last night, AJ Hinch told the Astros that's not necessarily the case, but we'll see.
The Royals beat the Jays too. And Jose Berrios again looks like a very suspect Jays arm. And that's a big impact in the American League. Because if the Jays don't sort out their rotation woes and they don't have any depth in the minors coming up, they've got Ricky Tiedemann that they can kind of dream on, and that's it. So if they don't get those guys sorted out at the top, and right now that's just seeing like there's a lot of cracks, that the American League all of a sudden becomes a lot clearer, and Angels fans get excited.
As well they should. But it coming back to the American League East, because we were talking about the Rays and we talking about the Jays. I'll say kind of a group, looking over the group here, I don't expect much of the Red Sox. I hope for more for the Orioles. And the Yankees going to be the Yankees. I think they're going to have a good year. Look at the AL East. What are you seeing across those other teams?
I think they were better crafted than people gave them credit for. And I think I sent a tweet out about that because everybody wrote off the Red Sox because Xander Bogaerts left. Well, Xander Bogaerts is a nice player, but he's not the be-all, end-all of that team. To me, Rafael Devers is the heartbeat of that lineup. And if you surround him with high-quality personnel around him, he'll do what he's supposed to do, which is anchor that lineup. So to me, it's all about their pitching. And I think they have surprising guys that could actually chip in and do a lot more good than people give them credit for. Like Tanner Hook is a good example. They've got some guys that, you can sort of dream on, and it wouldn't take much for them to go out and acquire a starter at the deadline and all of a sudden be dangerous. If they're that kind of team, as long as they hang around long enough, right? I don't know which way they'll go at the deadline, whether or not they would be a buyer per se. But they've made investments like, in all kinds of places, from Japan to the free agency to trades, that point to them really believing that they're a competitive team. So I don't think they're going to stop there. And they saved some money in the Xander Bogaerts deal. So they might as well, amp it up if they feel like they're somewhat close. Like I said before, I think if Toronto falls, like I think they're going to, because they traded away too much depth of their lineup to the point where it puts all of the pressure on the top of the lineup. And now they have no consistency in the bottom, and they have suspect pitching to go with it. And they don't have the assets to trade for other pieces. To me, the Jays are dangerously close to a rebuild. If they lose two of those arms and they're to the injury, they don't have the budget to really ramp it up. And I don't think Rogers is going to allot them any extra than what they've already spent, because they've already spent quite a bit of money. Whatever they do have, they're going to have to spend on extending guys like Manoah, Bichette, Guerrero. Like those, they're basically just keeping the same pieces. Well, then what are you keeping them around for if you're not actually competitive in the AL East, Like next offseason, Baltimore has nothing on the books. Literally nothing. They can go out and buy whoever they want. So I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I like Baltimore's direction. I don't know how their pitching is going to hold up. And then the Yankees is the same kind of thing. We know their lineups, is going to produce runs. How their pitching holds up. I like Johnny Brito's start. It was solid. Whether or not he can repeat that over and over again, we'll see. But they showed me a little bit more, I think, than I thought they had behind Cole so far.
Well, we just talked about the AL East, and kind of as a gag, I almost went to teamrankings.com just to get a look overall beyond actually looking at any particular division, where is how teams were playing out in the run differentials. Mm-hmm. I wasn't overly surprised to see the Dodgers up there at the top with 22, but then Tampa Bay was right there, side by side, sharing that same spot with 22 run differential. The Angels, again, 21, they were there. Let's see if, the one that really did surprise me was number 30, and it was Philadelphia being negative 25.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah. So if we take, instead of continuing to go into all those, let's jump just for grins and giggles to the Phillies in their division. So if we're looking at the NL East, they've lost 4 games, dude. They've only played 4 games. What the hey?
Yeah, I don't know if it's you can call it a World Series hangover or not yet. Like they would have to continue this through April and May. And really, I mean, the heartbeat of that team is Bryce Harper, and they had a slow start last year as well. So I don't know, sometimes it takes a few things to happen. A lot of their changes they had were trying to fit in Trey Turner, who has his own personality and feel. Their pitching staff really hasn't been as healthy as they'd hoped, I think. Andrew Painter was a guy that they had hoped to have in the rotation that ended up, going down to injury. So I think we have to give him a little bit of time. A little bit like last time I did a pod, they were asking questions about Wander Franco and whether or not he was should be considered a bust at this point, whether or not I was worried about the contract. I was like, sometimes it's just a little bit too early. Yeah. So a little bit of patience, see where Philadelphia is come mid-May. But if that trend continues, they're in a world of hurt, and I don't think they'll be happy with the investments they made. Dave Dombrowski would have a lot to answer for, I think.
Oh, yeah, and they have not played a home game yet either. So that's another little chilling fact. So I guess that means they're going to have 2 series on the road before they go home. Wow. Heck of a way to start. But looking across the NL East too, I keep looking at the Marlins and say, well, they got Sandy Alcantara. And I know it's more than just that, but they're at what? Only they've lost 4 games and won 1 during this period of time too. Nationals have lost 3, won 1. The Mets, okay, this blew my head a little bit. I really expected to see them doing better, but again, we're only looking at 5 games. They've won 2. Excuse me, they've won 3 and lost 2. I don't know. I just expected them to win everything. I expected them to be that 1,000 winning percentage. And then the Braves also in the NL East have the same win-loss record. No, they're 4 games though, 3-1 as opposed to the Mets 3-2.
But again, with the Mets and the Braves, you're talking about 2 teams that are going through some injuries on the pitching staff. But the Braves have the depth to mitigate that, while the Mets really, are a little bit thinner. So they went out and got, a Cy Young winner that was 40 years old, and they're getting a result of getting a Cy Young winner that was 40 years old. They're having to wait for him to show up, and sometimes it reminds me a lot of when the Jays went out and got R.A. Dickey, and they traded Noah Syndergaard for him.
Yeah,
and I hated that deal from the minute they did it. Travis d'Arnaud was part of that deal as well. I was like, what are you doing? The guy just won the Cy Young. It was his last great season, and it just doesn't make any sense. At some point in time, you have to call a spade and be happy when they're older and have great seasons, like the Rays did with Charlie Morton. They enjoyed those seasons. But, Charlie Morton had the great seasons with the Rays. He was 5 years younger than Justin Verlander is today. That's a big difference. So I don't know how it'll shake out, but I know the Braves and the Mets, it's going to be a contingency of which one of those 2 teams has the healthiest pitching staff through the season. I think is going to come out on top.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, Braves have always kind of been a favorite of mine, and the Phillies, more so lately. And now that they got Trey Turner, I don't know. I always love watching that guy anyway. I love watching that guy slide and just kind of stand up. It was great watching him during the World Baseball Conference too. Man, it was amazing to watch. Excuse me, World Baseball Classic. But he was just stunning. So looking across the NL East, I think it's going to be fun to watch there. I'm really kind of hopeful to see the Marlins step up. I don't know that it will happen, but I'd like to
I
see
like
that.
their Luis Arraez acquisition. I think it'll be really good for them long term. It gave them a personality to put in there and to really, set the tone. What they need to find now is that Rafael Devers type, or the guy that's going to anchor the lineup behind them. If they can get that, everything else will settle in behind that. But they're really struggling with finding consistency in their lineup. It's really become a problem.
Well, let's move on and let's go to NL Central. Mm-hmm. And one of the ones that I want to point to first, just simply because, I love Willie Adames with the Rays. And
you were going there.
Yeah. I am. But my gosh, how do you like that new rookie you got, Brice Turang, man?
I called it when because I watched him, just be a pest. Like whenever the Durham Bulls were playing them, he was one of the guys that stood out, and I was like, this guy is going to be fine when he gets to MLB. So when they traded Colton Wong, I was like, yep, that makes sense because Brice is ready. He'll fit right in, and he's not going to be perfect in his first year, but he's going to be a spark plug for that lineup. And you talk about bringing balance to the bottom of the lineup. He's the type of guy that the Marlins need. They need to have those offensive pieces that fit right in from the start and can ramp up the production at the bottom of the lineup.
Well, he certainly did that last night. He had his first big league home run, which happened also to be a grand slam. So kudos to you, Brice. Looking to see many more great things to come. Wow.
Yeah.
So what else we got? We got the Reds, the Pirates, the Cardinals, and the Cubs in that division. Who do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about the disappointment of the Cubs so far. I expected more out of them, to be quite honest. And I know it's early. It's only a couple of games, a handful. They have time. But I expected them to be a little bit tougher of an opponent than they have been. I think they're a little bit like in that Seattle conversation where I'm thinking, like you made some significant investments, some significant moves. It's time for you to become a winning team, like always being a decent amount above 500. And in a division that, seemed on the surface to have that kind of space, it seemed to be that year that they could actually get back into contention to some form. But what I'm seeing more now in the NL Central, maybe more than any other division, is parity. That division is going to be a dogfight right up to the end because all those teams, Brian Reynolds is having a good impact with the Pirates. You're seeing the Reds pitching coming through. Their pen is solid. Alexis Diaz is awesome. I love him. They have Hunter Green leading the way on the mound. They have some really solid pieces coming through for them. Not saying they're going to keep it up all season long, but each one of those teams has reason to be thought of as competitive. And the fight that the Cards showed against the Jays, going back and forth in a slugfest and then coming back and winning two of them after they had their hearts crushed, basically. So there's a lot of really, that's why I say the Cubs are disappointing, but they're in a very competitive division that's going to be there for the taking, I think, the whole season long because they're going to beat up on each other.
Oh, yeah. And I was kind of looking over an article here from Brett Taylor. She wrote, with Bleacher Nation. And yesterday marked Swanson's third 3-hit game in his first 4 with the Cubs. She goes on to say, know how many other new Cubs have done that since 1901? 0.
I love Dansby. To me, he was one of the best signings of the offseason. And I thought the cost was right. And, hopefully he gets some success there while he's there.
Yeah, I'm planning actually to go see a game there about a week from now. I'm going to see him. What is it going to be? I'm going to be heading up to Chicago and seeing the Cubbies play at Wrigley. So that should be fun.
Nice. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah. You know what? It was amazing to me. I got some pretty decent seats, man, for less than $60. I got each. I got a couple of really good seats and down like in the 110 section up there near the dugouts from the Cubbies. But so, wow. Seat geek.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, there should be a commercial for that, I guess. But yeah, enough of that. Well, let's move on to the NL West. Okay, man, we're looking at the Padres, looking at the Dodgers, the Giants, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks. Oh, by the way, one more Rays comment. Diamondbacks, Longo hit a home run last night. Okay.
Like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that old man, he's doing great. But so we're looking across that group. I mean, you talk about a lot of talent. Man, NL West looks jam-packed with it.
Yeah, they I don't know what they have, teams coming back down to earth, teams that are dealing with injuries like the Padres are. They have the depth though to just take that leap forward if they want. I think what probably surprised a lot of people is how quickly the young guys for the Dodgers have stepped up. Like, it's one thing to expect them to step up for the year, but to be like right away, like, bam, here we are. Like the front office knew what they were doing. This is what we got, and just carrying on with it is pretty cool to see. And it points out, the front office does know what they're doing, and they do know what they have in house. Sort of like what the Rays are doing as well. So I think Arizona maybe is a little bit of a disappointment. MadBum really doesn't have anything left in the tank. I don't know what you do with that money, but he needs rest more than anything, and maybe he can come back and turn it on. But I would almost put him on the 15-day IL right now and see if he can, work up, to being. I don't know if you can really rework his stuff at the age he is and the experience he has, but he sort of has to add some things. He has to change some things. So I don't know what that is, but hopefully they figure it out for him and them, because he's taking up a large part of their budget. The Rockies, I mean, Chris Bryant is finally healthy and showing that he was a good investment. So they're having a little bit of success. They lost 3 in a row though, so maybe they turn it back on today. And there's still, there's one game between the top and the bottom of this division after 4 games. So nothing yet to write home about.
No, I'm looking. I want to talk a little bit here before I guess we come back to the American League. And there was something about a tweet this morning you had. Could you and I talk briefly before the show about the hitters who've already reached their? Let's see. You want to go ahead and set that up for everybody?
So there's only 7 hitters that have a .5 F/WAR or better so far, before today's games. So the 7, if you go 3 through 7, these guys are tied.
Let me interrupt you for real quick. And what is the F/WAR?
So it's for Fangraphs. So it's their version of WAR.
Okay, thank you.
B-WAR would be Baseball Reference. So Fangraphs WAR would be, James Outman, Yo Moncada, Nolan Gorman, Miguel Vargas, and Mike Trout all have .5 F/WAR so far.
Wow.
Wander Franco's got .6, and Adam Duvall leads the way with .7, just like everyone predicted.
Yeah, Adam Duvall is just amazing to watch here. And as you were pointing, number 3, James Outman. Now he's with the Dodgers too, and
Vargas is as well.
I didn't realize that. That's right. My gosh. So there's a lot going on there. I mean, some good strength, like you're saying, 2 guys from the Dodgers. So NL West, you got Rays, Red Sox represented there in the first and second slot with Adam Duvall and Wander Franco. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the rest of this goes, man.
Yeah, well, a hot start can often lead to a really solid season. It doesn't mean you're going to lead the way all the way through. But I've always been, for example, a big Yo Moncada fan, in terms of his potential, if he could stay healthy. He's had a lot of knee issues all through his career, other various, injuries that pop up here and there. But I've owned him in fantasy a few times, hoping and dreaming that he'd have a fully healthy season. And it's sort of like the same thing as you see with Mike Trout. If Mike Trout has a full healthy season, the Angels could be a really strong playoff contender and playoff team. But is he going to stay healthy the entire year? I don't know. It's tough to tell. But it's nice to see that many young guys. That's the focus that I kind of like here, where Vargas, Gorman, Outman, and Franco are younger guys that are on this list and really popping off early in the season.
Okay, well, now let's get back to, I think we covered just about all of them except AL West. So, man, there's, again, another tight division -1. We'll just drop that one team and we'll put somebody else in Nashville. I'm sorry. The Oakland A's. Is there a reason that they're still allowed to have a team? I can't imagine.
I think there's reason for certain owners to get replaced in some cases, and I think the Pirates and the the A's are two of the examples that I use a lot of times where their fan base should be so much more electric than they are if they had the right ownership in place doing the right things. Now, having said that, they still have a brilliant front office that have made moves that will keep them somewhat competitive, to be quite honest, despite all of the things that they've had to deal away and all that kind of stuff. I don't see them as being a joke franchise. Like I would think the guys that the Rays are facing tonight, like the Nationals, are more of a AAA team than the Oakland A's are. The Oakland A's will be pesky and will be, they will show up. So you need to show up when you face them. The Nationals, to me, are more like a team learning how to play AAA baseball in Major League Baseball, if that makes sense, for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's a really sad thing to see, but that's the way that they've decided to go. And I understand it. Keibert Ruiz is going to be a great player. They have ingredients there that are going to, blossom eventually. They're just not there. Oakland is more pesky. They've got those guys on that team, like Seth Brown and Tony Kemp, and the guys that are going to show up every day to play hard. So you've got to show up when you go up against them. And I really like Esteury Ruiz that they got. Like, he's going to be electric. And they ended up trading Christian Pache over to the Phillies because of Esteury Ruiz, and got some more pitching because of it. And that's what I think. The Oakland A's have always had this knack for accumulating breadth of pitching. And because of that, they're able to find gems, diamonds in the rough, so to speak. And they always seem to be able to locate those and then, put some in the pen when they need them. So they're to me, the more worrisome this year so far is Seattle.
Yeah.
Seattle is supposed to be a powerhouse. They were supposed to walk into the season this year and be like, bam, here we are. We're back at the top. Watch us take off like a rocket. And instead, they're like the home-built rocket that the 9-year-old built in the backyard and fizzled, It just hit the window and then jostled the mom out of her making lunch. So, Robbie Ray being hurt is no good for that rotation. They have plenty of talent to shake out of it, so I have no worries yet. But it's something to monitor because, they made a lot of changes. They changed some personnel around, and sometimes that can have different consequences than you expect.
Yeah, I was a bit stunned about that as well when you're looking at, again, just 4 games, but all 4 of those games were at home. Mm-hmm. And, Cleveland, I think they should have been able to at least, split that particular series. If not saying that Cleveland will lie down, but, Cleveland's a good team, but I think the Mariners got a bit more of an edge. And I was a little surprised to see that. Let's see. Yeah. And not surprised with the Angels. There you're facing a stronger team, I think. Anybody that's got Ohtani and Trout and the rest of that group, that's always going to be a challenge. Let's see. So who are they facing after that? They're going to be facing. Well, then they're going to go on the road, Matt, and they're going to face the Guardians again, and then the Cubbies. That's kind of what's coming up in their near future.
Yeah, well, I don't know how the schedule makers made the season this year, but there's a lot of really. I don't know if it's a 13, games against your divisional opponents thing, but like the Rays, for example, will face the White Sox 7 times before the end of April, but won't have seen the Orioles or the Yankees at all. Like, how does that happen? It just seems odd. Like
That just sounds ridiculous to me. But again, I wasn't sitting in that closed door room with all the cigars and whatever else and drinks on the table and scratching out there on the spreadsheets and trying to figure something out. But good Lord, man. Yeah, I'm like you. How can they do that where you're seeing somebody out of your division that many times and you're still not seeing 2 of the main players or 2 of the main teams in your own division, even the first freaking month? I don't know, man. It's
an oddity.
It is an oddity. Jeezy, Pete. Well, we kind of took a look across the league here, both leagues, and I think we got some good ideas about what's going to be happening. And it's like, obviously, I look up to the skies and wait for the clouds to open and say, Mark, this is what's going to happen for the rest of the year. Thank goodness that doesn't happen, because if it did, the rest of the year would be boring as hell. But that's not going to happen this year. And I am really looking forward to this balanced schedule. I got to tell you, Matt, to me, for every team to be able to play every other team in MLB is a great thing. And, you were talking about AL Central being a balanced division, but there are several divisions that aren't balanced at all. And so really curious to see how the new schedule works out across the league.
No, that's really, I don't think so. Like, we talk about the Rays schedule being easy to start, or other team schedules being easy to start. The nice thing to know is that they're all going to get a chance to play those same teams. So, in the course of a season, the team doesn't have excuses anymore about being in a heavy-handed division. They've had those opportunities to go, like the Yankees are going to see the Tigers, the Yankees are going to see the Nationals, the Jays are going to do the same, the Red Sox. So there's no discrepancy anymore. Yes, you'll still lean a little bit more towards your division, but now it's at a tolerable level, I think. It's not so much that it actually sways, those competitive teams that really end up just being like the years where the AL East has 4 teams that should be in the playoffs, and only 3 make it in. Those are the ones that I kind of sit there and I go, well, that 4th playoff team was probably way better than any of the division leaders in the other divisions in most cases. And so it's nice to see that balance out a little bit, so that the point that, yes, they'll probably be able to make it in this time around.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm going to be watching AL Central much as anything, because to me, the Guardians, the Twins, the White Sox, like I said, I think they're pretty tight. And like I said, can't completely discount the Royals and Tigers, but I'm going to be watching, I think, that division, because to me, the White Sox and the Guardians are always exciting. The Twins, they kept Carlos Correa, and there they are. They are with 1,000 wins percent. All of the games were away, and see how they do for the rest of the season. But
what did you think about the Anthony Rendon suspension?
Oh, I didn't see what it was. Some kind of interaction with a fan. Mm-hmm. And I think I've seen enough of those that probably, if it wasn't on camera, it may not have gotten any juice whatsoever.
Probably. But the thing that struck me is like MLB came out and they said, okay, 5 games. And then almost immediately after, I think it was maybe 6, 7, 8 hours later, MLB and MLBPA came out and said, no, okay, we've agreed to 4 games. And it's the first time I can remember MLBPA acting so quickly to address something like this with MLB and actually come to a conclusion that both were satisfied with. And to me, that's the more interesting, where they were both on the same page. They both said, yeah, this can't happen. And then boom, it was taken care of. So I think, to me, that's really intriguing, and hopefully it leads to more of those kinds of arrangements taking place in the future. That way we don't have, because to me, that's always what brings, baseball and other sports into bad light, is when you're actually having the league and the players, tussle. Yeah, we make light of it sometimes, and we think, oh, it's just a drama that, they're using to sway public opinion to their side or whatever it might be. But I think it's important for baseball now, with all the positivity of the World Baseball Classic and a lot of rule changes, working through some of the things to make things positive. They need to feed off that and continue that going forward. So I was happy to see that, like, both of them came to the same conclusion, like mature people should, and hopefully that continues.
Like mature people should. I think you hit it right there. So I didn't realize that. I just heard the first part about the MLB and the 5-game suspension. I didn't realize that the MLBPA came out like that with them, that they agreed upon something and actually set it together. So yeah, that is encouraging. Anytime those guys can get together, it's benefit for them and hopefully for the fans as well, about just a good nature in the game.
Exactly.
Okay, now that we've taken up and torn up the rest of the MLB universe, we're going to bring it back to the team that we love the most, and the one we look at, that Matt looks at the closest, because time and again, Matt, I talk about you being able to dig into all of the minor league teams. And before we get into this, I want to say I have really enjoyed and been thankful that with my MLB TV subscription, I'm able to see minor league games. So I'm able to, I mean, during Bulls last, I look up there, I'm seeing Jonathan Aranda and some other guys. Oh, that's where he is.
You get to see, like, to me, it'll bring more focus. And like when you have downtime, you have 15, 20 minutes, you might not catch the entire game, but you'll be able to flick to it and see some of the guys do some of the things against certain people. And to me, that's the biggest impact of all. You can hear about a prospect hitting 25 home runs in a year, but who he hits them off of, in what situation, all those kinds of things matter. And then you get a better perspective of where that prospect's coming from. That's why I had confidence in Brice Turang, for example, because I've seen what he can do against who he did it, which was a lot of times the Rays prospects. And if you're able to do it against them, more than likely you're doing pretty well. So,
well, let's dig into the Rays. What can you tell me about them as far as, I mean, we know what we kind of talked a little bit about how their season has begun, but what should we be looking for? Players, managers?
Minors wise, they're just starting to come up with their assignments now, which is sort of interesting to see, because now you're getting to see how close some players are to being of impact in the majors. But so, like, for example, they have Carson Williams, Junior Caminero, Willie Vasquez, Sandy Gaston were all promoted to high A. So now you're talking, if they have a strong, first 2/3 of the season, maybe they end up in Double A by end season. Then they're on your radar for the next year. So it's fun to see them. They'll be playing against better competition, so you get to rate, how well they do. You also saw Greg Jones go down to Double A, and he's going to be with Tristan Peters and a couple of other guys hovering around the outfield. It's going to be interesting to see how he acclimatizes to that. I will say that the Durham Bulls had the unlucky luck of the draw by going up against Norfolk in their first series, and then ended up being a pretty ugly one, to be quite honest. Luis Patino really didn't have, his best stuff. He still doesn't, and I still think he needs to make some changes. But overall, there's some positives in there to draw it anyway. Ruben Cardenas just crushed one ball that hit the flag at the top of the flagpole. There was Kyle Manzardo, who hit his first AAA home run, and it was as you expect, he crushed that one. There's a lot of positives to look through, and I think Curtis Meads looked solid defensively. Still hasn't gotten hot at the plate yet, but that'll come. And I think that's what my biggest focus has been with the Rays in the first part of the year, is that when you stand back and you look at it and you say, okay, you've got Isaac Paredes, who's 23 years old. You've got Luke Raley, who's, he's showing his potential and he's doing really well. And so now you have the corners, with a lefty and a righty power bat, and both of them doing extremely well. And behind them, you've got a Curtis Mead and a Kyle Manzardo. Wow. And when you consider the strength up the middle of the Rays, and then you look at those four pieces, you realize just how great the potential of this Rays team is. Because come mid-season, assuming things shake out right, Curtis Mead and Kyle Manzardo should be knocking on the door, and that door is locked right now. So they're going to have to tear it down, which is always good. Competition breeds excellence, right? So then that motivates them more, sort of like it did Josh Lowe last year in AAA. So I'm looking forward to that, to seeing how that motivates them and drives them to do even better.
Well, and last year, unfortunately, the Rays had a lot of injuries, so there was a lot of opportunity for some people to come up. I mean, plenty of trades were made too to strengthen the team. Mm-hmm. But man, when you look down at what we've got in the minor leagues, it is amazing. I mean, I keep thinking of Taj Bradley. Is he Taj still with them, or?
Yeah, Taj is still with them. Yep. He did well in his start, not great. He was dealing with the weather. So it was Taj Bradley against Grayson Rodriguez, and neither of them looked to be at their best. I think you saw what the separation is between Grayson and Taj, though, to be quite honest, where when I look at them, like, I see Grayson Rodriguez as having the same potential as a Johan Santana, or, being a real innings eating machine that just goes up there and throws 220 to 240 innings if he wants. A little bit like Justin Verlander as well. It looks strong standing up there. Taj Bradley still looks like he needs to grow a little bit into his body and find his form a little bit. And he's younger, so it makes sense that he's that way. So I think both of them will be great, but they both dealt with weather that really hampered their pitching that day. It was like that cold, drizzly rain that just is constant, and it just it's April's that way. It'll bring out the best and worst in the weather for sure.
I can't imagine because, like I said, I walked out. It was 90 degrees, but I can't imagine, especially if you've been training in spring training, and not that it's been 90 degrees down here in Florida all that long, but to be going up and then playing where you see your breath in front of your face.
It's one of those things too, where I think the fans that go out to those games and stick it out, they're the diehards. They're the ones that are, really supporting the team. A lot of times you wonder, are they all family members? Is that what's going on? But we know that's not the case. There's diehards out there.
Yeah, there are. And there's, so I'm glad to see that. I still haven't gotten to see the Durham Bulls. I'm going to have to make a special effort to get out this year and watch them somewhere. Getting back to the folks that we do have and people coming up, we've still got a couple of really great pitchers that are on their IL right now, don't we?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. Like, I know obliques can be finicky. So, and I know Tyler Glasnow, he's probably chewing it just wants to get on that field and be part of this great run that the pitchers are on. But I hope he uses some patience, and you don't want it recurring. You want, when Tyler Glasnow comes back to this team, you want it to be on right up until the end when they're either win it all or knocked out of the playoffs, one or the other. So hopefully that heals right. If he comes back, if you look at that rotation and the way they've pitched, and I think Zach Eflin has another level to reach once he really settles in. The pen, the impact it's going to have on the pen, I think people are understating, because already they've saved the pen about 6 innings based on the average, that the Rays have done over the last few years up to this point. So you talk about those innings being less and less and less on the pen. Well, then you can use all your best pieces more often, or save their bullets until you get to the playoffs. That way they're nice and fresh and ready to go. So it's going to be really intriguing to see. I could see the Rays concentrating on adding one elite arm for the pen at some point between now and the trade deadline, just because of the impact it would have to bridge that to the end of the game. Because now it's even higher because of how well the pitching staff is doing.
Well, my goodness. I mean, I love watching Jeffrey Springs the other day. I couldn't tell you how many strikeouts he had, but it was I know that he had a multitude of them the other day. And seeing him play so well, Shane McClanahan, opening day, amazing. And the Shane I was curious about, and hopefully he's going to be back soon, is Mr. Boz. Shane Boz, can't wait to see him come back.
Next year. That's next year.
Is that next year? Oh, my gosh. I hadn't kept up with it. I didn't realize it. Well, like probably
next year will be the Shane Boz and Taj Bradley show. I hope both of them are healthy and in there, and that's why it brings into question whether or not the Rays are going to pay Tyler Glasnow $25 million.
Yeah.
Well, it'll depend a lot on health, I think, and how other pieces shake out. But Josh Fleming tonight, he's a guy that already works fast. He's fun to watch. I see him as potentially being a multi-innings guy in the pen eventually, but having said that, he's seen the success that Jeffrey Springs has had. He's not the exact same arm slot and stuff, but he can play with the ball in a similar way where he could have similar success. So whether or not they translate some of that over, it would be really intriguing for them to have him also reach another level this year for sure.
I got to tell you, I went to the Rays Fans Fest was about a month ago, and got to see both Josh Fleming and Pete Fairbanks. They were up on stage playing some kind of crazy little game where they had to try to compete with one another, finding scavenger hunt with the audience.
Yep.
So they had, each one of them had to find something. So they say, somebody out there who has a sticky notes, and don't you know, while Josh Fleming was very good and polite, reaching out to folks, Pete Fairbanks leapt over off the stage into the crowd where he thought he saw somebody with it. And I mean, the fun that those two guys were having just was great to see. But man, Pete Fairbanks scares me sometimes. I think he scares everybody who looks at those eyes when they're at the plate with him anyway. But he's done, I can't remember I haven't looked the last couple games. I think he was up to like 22, 23, 24 innings without any hits on him, I believe.
Oh, I haven't been following that. Wow.
Yeah.
I remember him having a really strong end of the year where he seemed possessed. He seemed like, here's my best stuff. Hit it if you can. That's it. That's all he was basically chucking at him. So, I love to see that kind of attitude out of the pen. I find, if you have a nibbler in the pen, sometimes you could end up getting hurt. I think Garrett Clevenger just had that kind of moment where, you get a bit unlucky because they get some odd hits off you.
Yeah.
The Rays do have two really strong guys up back there, and I hope they stay healthy all year in Fairbanks and Jason Adam. But I even played with the idea of imagine they get to the playoffs, and for whatever reason, there's health things that happen, but they use Tyler Glasnow out of the pen. They would be almost unstoppable with the four guys they do have, right? Like it doesn't really even matter at that point because you condense all of your pitchers in the playoffs. So yeah, the Rays are in a good spot. I will knock on wood right now because I don't want anything to happen to those guys. I want to ride it out all year and see where it ends up in the end.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, brother. Like I said, this is going to be an exciting year. It's an exciting season. And wow, we got a great pitching staff. And like you said, there's so much depth. If there's need to bring somebody up, it's not going to be hard to find the talent that's there in the minors. So,
I want to point out something as well that I saw last night, which I love. Like, I think it's an underspoken thing in baseball. And the Rays came, like Randy Arozarena, of all people, came out hustling against the Washington Nationals, a team they knew they probably had a significant advantage against. And they were all playing like this the entire game. They were playing like it was a very, very important game. And this early in the season, with already having won, swept the series, they still had that mentality. And to me, that speaks to the focus of the bad taste they had in their mouth from the second half of last year. They really didn't like the way it ended. It speaks to how they want to prove to the entire world that they have another level. And to me, those Rays players, if they do play like that all year, that is dangerous. They are going to have a lot of fun.
Well, I'm excited about it. Like I said, I know you and I want to see the game here in a little bit. It is Tuesday, April 4th, and it is going to be another fun year. I'm going to be here all year, and I can't thank you enough, Matt, for everything you do and you put up there on Twitter. Keeps us involved with the game. Again, where can they find you on Twitter?
Just at @MAT_Germain, GERMAIN _.
There you go. And you can find me, Mark, at The Baseball Biz, because we enjoy the game so much. We want to share it with you all. We hope you enjoy it. Matt, again, I can't thank you enough for being with us here today, man, and look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Sounds good. Anytime, buddy.
All right. A couple of post-production nuggets to this episode of Baseball Biz. The Rays did indeed continue to win last night once again and putting themselves up as the only undefeated record to date. As we know, all things change, but congratulations, Rays. And to the Astros, our condolences as once again, A.J. Hinch took the Detroit Tigers in Houston and took another win against the Astros. You've been listening to Baseball Biz. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcast directory, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more. Thanks again, and remember you can also check us out on Twitter at @TheBaseballBiz. Take care and have a great week. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward.